We're in the midst of a huge transformation where our peers, communities, and workplaces are all really melding into one. Welcome to Reimagining Company Culture. My name is Christina Giordano, she, her, and hers, and I am the Senior Partnerships Manager here at AllVoices. Today, I'm very excited to welcome our next guest onto the interview series, Tarsha McCormick. She is the Vice President of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Engagement at WP Engine. Tarsha, thank you so much for being here. If you want to share a little bit about yourself for listeners, including your pronouns, and when you were younger. Do you remember how you answered the question when folks asked, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Christina. It's a pleasure to be here. As you mentioned, I'm Tarsha McCormick. My pronouns are she and her, and I am currently the Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, Culture and Engagement, yes, long title, at WP Engine. And I have worked in the people space for close to 25 years now. And for the past 8, I've really focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm a Midwest girl. I was born and raised in Chicago. I spent 11 years in Atlanta, and about a year ago, I relocated to Austin, Texas, for the opportunity at WP Engine. And I enjoy supporting people and helping people and, just getting settled in Austin. As far as the question about what I wanted to be when I grew up, I think I'm still trying to figure that one out. But but as a child, I wish I could say that it was an HR professional, but it wasn't. I wasn't that person who knew from day one what they wanted to be and never changed courses. In elementary school, I loved education, so I thought about becoming a teacher. And then when I was in high school, I had a law class that really piqued my interest in law, and I ended up being a political science major in college and, considered law school. But I really have always enjoyed helping people. And so after college, I actually worked as a social worker for many years. And it wasn't until probably in my early to mid 30s that I realized that all of those things that I loved, like the education, the law aspect, and helping people, really was the career that I ended up with in HR, because you have to touch on all 3 of those aspects, and it married all of those loves. And so although I never thought about HR or a career in tech as being, my destiny, or it wasn't my dream, I do think that it was part of my destiny.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's interesting to ask that question to folks. I'm pretty sure nobody has answered. I wanted to be an HR professional. I wanted to be I wanted to be a chief people officer, like all of these things. Fast forward to today, definitely want to get into the conversation around diversity, equity, and inclusion. A lot of folks, which is really great, are really looking internally at their strategies, saying, how can we really think about this strategically and make sure it's in our company culture? How is diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging really embedded in the DNA of your company? If you could share any kind of examples for folks listening in the recruitment process and the current employee experience at WP Engine.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have been really intentional about the approach and the focus on DEI, and we have really made it an active priority by choosing to focus on it daily. And we've even gone so far as to embed it in the values, our core values as a company. They're embedded in our value of doing the right thing and built for growth. In addition, it is one of our global strategic pillars for 2022 for us to accelerate our DEI maturity. And so we really we're looking at it through the lens of how do we continue to embed it in everything we do. And of course, we still have some work to do, but when I think about the recruitment process, all of our employees are required to complete unconscious bias, and DEI trainings annually. Our talent acquisition team recently completed 5 hours of diversity sourcing training. We try to create diverse interview panels for our candidates to help mitigate bias in the interview process, but also to, allow candidates to interview with someone who they may share social identity with. We recently rolled out structured interviews this year to really help mitigate some bias as well and to create a more equitable process. We have partnered with several diversity organizations this year to get more underrepresented minorities into our pipeline. So, amazing organizations like AnitaB.org and, Blacks in Tech and Out in Tech, just to name a few. Excuse me. When I think about our current employee experience, it really does start with the onboarding process, right? So we take the time to discuss the importance of DEI as well as our core values. We are constantly, sending out surveys or hosting focus groups or listening sessions to get feedback from employees, because it's important that we understand what is important to them and that we aren't taking a top-down approach. We also actively involve our employees in some of the work that we're doing related to DEI. I'm really proud of all of our employee resource groups. We have 8 now. We have one that is focused on women, one that is focused on people of color. There's one for the LGBTQIA plus community, as well as one for caregivers, one focused on mental health and well-being. We recently started one for people who are differently able. We even have a green and environmental ERG, as well as our open hearts or give back ERG that is really focused on ways that people can have a positive impact in the community, whether that's through fundraising or volunteering. Last year, we created a DEI council, and that is comprised of employees, throughout our different hubs globally. Not only do they give us insight, they also, help us, again, keep the pulse on what's important to their communities, and they are helping lead some of the work that we're doing, whether that is related to benefits or communication or education and awareness. What else? I would say some of the listening sessions. We've held so many listening sessions in the year and a half since I've joined the organization. And again, these are just opportunities for us to allow space for our employees to, to learn about lived experiences of others and to share how they're feeling about issues that are impacting them, whether that is related to reproductive health, gun violence, civil uncertainty, Asian American Pacific Islander hate, etc. One of the committees that we have on the DEI Council is an inclusive benefits committee. So we are always thinking about ways that we can involve our employees, that we can solicit their feedback, so that we can activate on it, and things that continue to reiterate that DEI is an active priority for us.
Yeah, I really appreciate those examples. And also, it sounds like there is a multi-pronged approach to really thinking intentionally about candidate experience, onboarding, and then throughout the experience, how folks can raise their hand, be part of different initiatives, programs, and really use their voice to create an environment where people can thrive and feel like they can bring themselves to work every day as well. We know that every person, every leader, and every organization as a whole is at a different part of their diversity, equity, and inclusion journey. And I would love to kind of know from your perspective, where would you say WP Engine is today, and where would you aspirationally want to be, let's say, like a year from now?
Great question. So we're a work in progress, right? As all organizations are. But if I had to assess it by maybe the 5 stages of a company's DEI maturity, with those 5 stages being underdeveloped, basic, emergent, integrated, and strategic, I would say we are at level 4. We're integrated. So we've had a strategic DEI plan in place for more than a year now. And we really are looking at DEI from an employee's full life cycle perspective, from our recruiting process. So how are we recruiting? Where are we recruiting? How are we mitigating that bias? We are looking at our benefits to make sure that, they are more inclusive, and that they are also going to attract more diverse candidates. This year, we rolled out 3 DEI-related policies and guidelines. So we have a principled, not political philosophy. We introduced an inclusive language philosophy, as well as a policy for gender transitioning in the workplace. We also offer a lot of leadership development programs that are designed for underrepresented groups who may, have some unique challenges that they face. We have done more around education and awareness, thinking about and talking about what it means to be an ally, talking about privilege, just trying to have those tough conversations that aren't easy but are important, and trying to really help people learn more about another person's perspective and their lived experiences. So those are some of the things that I think have gotten us to integrate it. As far as where we want to be a year from now, I would love for us to continue to have DEI embedded in everything that we do in the organization. And so it is business as usual. We are making great strides to achieving that. But again, we know that there's always more work to do. And I would love to see us move more from just thinking about how we are getting more diversity in the pipeline to focusing more on getting more diversity in senior leadership roles.
Absolutely. Representation at every level of an organization is really important. And I want to kind of focus in or dig a little bit deeper around the facilitation of really hard conversations. I think that's something that a lot of folks are thinking about, how they navigate those situations in the workplace as well. We know that diversity, equity, and inclusion work is not about an idealistic goal of erasing any of the isms at work, whether it's racism or sexism or any of these things, but organizations have a huge responsibility because of the community they have, the employees, and just their role in society to really make a difference. So with all that said, can you tell me a little bit about how you believe private employers can really engage more thoughtfully in one of these conversations around specifically privilege and race?
Yeah, so one, I just think you have to make it a priority to have the conversation, right? If you don't have anyone in your organization who is comfortable or qualified to have those conversations, then consider hiring a facilitator to come in and do that. One of the things that I recently did with WP Engine during our all hands event was I facilitated a session about privilege. Privilege can be one of those polarizing words that carries a lot of stigma, right? And so I wanted to have a conversation to start to break down that stigma and that we all have some unique form of privilege and we have it just purely by, by just the social identities that we have, and nothing that we have done has personally provided us that privilege. And so I showed or played a video called "The Race of Life," and it's a fairly popular video that really talks about privilege and social inequalities. And it's 4 minutes long. And the video, at the start of the video, you probably have 50 young adults who are getting ready to embark on this race. And the winner is going to receive $100. But before the start of the race, the coach says, okay, I want you to take a step forward. If you grew up in a household with both of your parents, take a step forward if you never had to think about where your next meal was coming from. Take a step forward if, and he probably asked 15 to 20 of those questions. And you start to see the young adults at different starting points on the field. And he says, okay, the people who are at the front of the line, I want you to turn around and just take a look at everyone who's behind you. And some people never moved off of that original starting point. And he said, okay, right, we're still going to run this race, right? Because that is the definition of life. And you are at the starting point due to nothing that you've done on your own. So, the winner of this race, I hope that you use this money to learn more about someone else. And so as I play that video, I ask the participants to just track the number of steps that they would have taken if they were participating. And let's have a conversation about that. And how does it make them feel? And so I found that when you have sort of interactive sessions like that, that will help spark the conversation, you start to have the light bulb moments. You start to have people thinking more deeply and considering different perspectives. And so that is, in my opinion, just a simple way for you to start to have those types of conversations in a way that isn't scary, in a way that is safe for people to learn and ask questions.
Absolutely. And I think it comes back to that intentionality as well in terms of setting the tone for the conversation, setting the stage for the workshop, investing in the time, setting up the space for people to really ask themselves these questions and really have a productive conversation around this as well. You shared a little bit around kind of the ways that folks can raise their hand to be part of the diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, in addition to kind of their jobs as well. And one of the ways was employee resource groups. I love employee resource groups because I was a former ERG leader, and they will always hold a special place in my heart in terms of the organizations, company culture. What role do ERGs play in your diversity, equity, inclusion strategy at WP Engine?
Well, Christina, you know firsthand how important ERGs are, and they really do help to support the culture and provide that sense of community, for employees. And honestly, I don't think that we could be as successful with our DEI strategy if we did not have such robust and engaged employee resource groups. Not only are they're responsible for a lot of dynamic programming that we see. They help build awareness. They're helping to educate. They're giving us a lot of great feedback about what is important to their communities and some things that they would love for us to see. Love for us to do. but also again, just building that community and helping people have that sense of belonging. And it's really important. In fact, when I think about one of the things that we're going to do in DEI this year, it really came from the feedback from Hugh, which is our LGBTQIA plus ERG. And they said, Tarsha, we would really love if we could participate in the Corporate Equality Index this year, just to see where we fall in comparison to some other organizations, and what are some things that maybe we can focus on once we get those results. And I said, absolutely. So that is something that we're going to do as well. And had we not gotten that feedback from them, it wouldn't be on our list today.
I think that is also a really great example too of really actively listening, seeing like what is really important to the team as well. And I've seen the kind of lists that come out too in terms of the criteria. And I think that's also helpful as a guidepost too. Were you surprised by any of the other feedback that you received in the listening sessions that you mentioned earlier as well?
I can't say that I've been surprised by any of the feedback that has come out of the listening sessions. I think what probably has surprised me the most is how valuable our employees have found them. It's something so simple to do, just to create the space, to give people the opportunity to share and learn from each other. And each time that we host one, we get so much positive feedback on how grateful employees are that we are just taking the time to provide the space and just to acknowledge whatever issue is happening, and that we're not turning a blind eye to it. And again, something so simple is so impactful and means so much to employees.
Absolutely. We know that people really appreciate, and it's related to their job. It's related to how they show up at work, being seen, heard, and understood in a really active and intentional way as well. We also know that, with a lot going on in terms of the job and just life in general, as you talked about earlier too, it sounds like there are a lot of ways that you're showing up for the full lives of employees, but definitely want to ask if there are any other ways that you want to highlight as well, especially as we know that folks are experiencing that burnout, both that's related to their career and the many hats they're wearing inside and outside of work.
Yeah, so, one of our goals is to make sure that our employees, no matter, who they are, what they look like, who they love, where they come from, um, that they feel a sense of belonging, and that they feel seen, and that they are empowered to grow and participate freely within WP Engine. And I think now more than ever, um, employees want more work-life integration, not the balance, right? They want the integration, and they want their full lives, to be seen and to be taken into consideration. What we heard a lot of, and I'm sure many other organizations have as well, is that flexibility is really important right now. So we adopted a virtual first, flexible first model that allows our employees to work from wherever they can do their best work. So whether that is their home office, if it is in one of our hubs, if it's in a coffee shop, or, at a relative or loved one's house in a different state, we want to give them that flexibility to be able to do that. At the start of the pandemic, we provided 4 wellness days to employees, one per quarter, where pretty much everyone in the company is off on the same day. And we got a lot of feedback that said this was great, and we're hoping that you will continue to provide those wellness days. And we've continued, to do it. We still get a ton of feedback. We know benefits are super important right now, especially reproductive health benefits, with everything that is being discussed in the U.S. right now. And so we are looking at adoption and surrogacy and, IVF and, equal parental leave. So we're exploring that. And then we really value transparency and vulnerability, as an organization, like where we're going, what our sense of direction is. We had a speaker from Great Place to Work come in a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things that I honed in on, because we have been thinking about it a lot as a company, is just being able to prioritize more. We're all juggling so many things. And one of the things that he said that stuck out to me was prioritization um, helps with well being, and well being helps with purpose. And so, if we can help our employees with that well being, then we know that's going to help them drive that purpose, and they're going to be happier and healthier and more engaged, and hopefully they will see a long career with WP Engine.
Absolutely. I like that phrase. And in terms of well being, thinking about the physical well being, the mental well being, emotional well being of an individual from that holistic lens, too. Tarsha, I know we talked about a lot in terms of your journey to this work and WP Engine's ever evolving strategy, commitment, and prioritization to diversity, equity, inclusion, culture, engagement. Is there anything that I didn't ask that you want to share with folks who are listening, or underscoring any kind of key insights you hope people bring with them?
Yeah, I will just underscore that, there's never a perfect state. When it comes to DEI, there's always something to learn and improve upon. And, that is our approach. We're committed to do the work. If you're just starting to give more thought to DEI, I know it can be overwhelming. Just commit to the journey. Take it step by step. Start small, and grow as you go.
I think that is a great call to action to end our conversation. Tarsha, thank you so much for being on Reimagining Company Culture this afternoon.
Thank you, Christina. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Of course, and as a reminder for folks who are listening, at AllVoices, we really believe in employees and employers being seen, heard, and understood, and know it's a requirement for the business to really succeed overall. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.